We have a massive Vikings trade update as a new report reveals an insane Vikings trade that they cannot afford to pass up in order to further bolster down some suddenly much needed position depth that would fit in perfectly with this team and all hyped up by a well-respected former player. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're enjoying this Vikings content, you want to join the nearly 20% of viewers who are already subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can stay up to date on all things Vikings. We're really close to our goal of 2,000 subscribers before the start of our week 4 game on Sunday morning against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay tuned for all the updates. And with that, let's hop straight into it, which is an insane trade update. So this was a report that came out from heavy.com recently, and it was further bolstered down by another well-respected player that we're going to jump into later on in this video. But getting it right out of the way off the bat, the Minnesota Vikings now have to consider an offense largely absent with starting running back Aaron Jones in 2025, as he currently resides on the IR with a hamstring injury. Minnesota planned well for this possibility by trading for Jordan Mason and then locking him into a 2-year value contract at $10.5 million total. That has already paid dividends and will continue to do so, as Mason is a bruiser between the tackles and wear defenses down over the course of games. Now, when Jordan Mason was initially brought to Minnesota, we all knew that this was exactly why he was brought here. Aaron Jones was battling a hamstring injury all season because he was getting overused. He was treated as a 20-touch back. He's not a 20-touch back anymore. He's more of a 12 to 15 to 16 max type back. Jordan Mason, however, is a bell cow type running back, so he was perfect to kind of step into that. And Aaron Jones was going to be used more as a change of pace type back, while still being that number one guy, but mainly primarily used as a receiving back. And especially now that Jordan Mason has kind of run away with that just downhill kind of power back type of run that we need, that'll bring it more open up to Aaron Jones in the passing game once he comes back from injury. However, within that, if he continues to have this injury bug nagging at him, especially that hamstring that nagged at him all last season, he didn't miss a game, but he was always on the questionable list every single week throughout practice. He was always ready to go, but it was still something that fantasy managers and Vikings fans were watching every single week. But the Vikings offense is without a dynamic running back who can catch passes regularly out of the backfield, which Mason has never really done in his career and is important in an offense led by either second-year quarterback J.J. McCarthy or veteran Carson Wentz. So despite Minnesota's addition of Cam Akers and the elevation of Xavier Scott, undrafted in 23, to RB2 after losing Jones and after Ty Chandler also hit IR with a knee injury, the Vikings should be in the market for a change of pace back with edge speed who can also make plays in the passing game. One potential option is Alvin Kamara of the winless New Orleans Saints, who could find himself on the trade block ahead of the NFL's November 4th trade deadline. Now, starting off with the running back depth that we have, it's unfortunate that Ty Chandler is on IR. And Aaron Jones, even though he's on IR now, he is coming back after the next couple weeks. So probably out of the bye is when we'll see him back in this Vikings lineup. But still is something worth to monitor because it could still get flared up after he comes back. We saw with Justin Jefferson how even with him, it was something to monitor throughout that entire year once he had that hamstring injury. And even now with on the other hamstring, that could still be something that flares up out of nowhere. And with Aaron Jones specifically having already had hamstring issues, there's no guarantee that that won't happen again with him. So Minnesota maybe almost wanting to cut their losses, not necessarily entirely, but they did just give Aaron Jones an extension. Maybe they want to keep him and bring in Alvin Kamara as well. But the thing with Alvin Kamara is it'll be very expensive because he has rushed for nearly 7,000 rushing yards and more than 4,800 receiving yards over the course of his 9-year career and found the end zone 86 times during that span. And for context, Kamara has averaged almost exactly 500 receiving yards over the previous 3 seasons, along with just under 67 receptions, and that is despite missing an average of 3 contests per year and precisely the type of production the Vikings need. And even though Kamara has been explicit that he wants to finish his career in New Orleans as a one-team player, the prospect of joining a dynamic offense and of a potential contender like Minnesota may be what he needs to make an exception. But the big problem with that is that he is in a big $25 million contract that the Vikings are going to need to do a little bit of moving around, probably moving Aaron Jones as a result to make that happen. So there is a decision here where Minnesota goes with a 2-year younger running back in Alvin Kamara, who brings a lot of production and a very lethal ability with how much he can cut. He's almost like the precursor to Bijan Robinson right now, where Alvin Kamara in his prime, yeah, he's not in his prime anymore, but he is still very capable of being very flashy and very much an ankle breaker at times, when he gets into open field and can make those cuts. And we saw that in his prime, obviously, where he was just dicing up Minnesota, specifically that Christmas Day game where he got fined for those cleats, but he absolutely did not care because he just diced us up left, right, and center and was an absolute problem. That could be a reversal of fortune where Minnesota gets him in their own squad where they can do that to other teams. And on a team like Minnesota, we've seen how Kamara has taken a massive dip over the past couple seasons, but he's still been very productive. You put him on a team like Minnesota with a revamped offensive line that New Orleans currently doesn't have, a better quarterback that New Orleans currently doesn't have, and a better wide receiving core to take the stress off him that New Orleans also currently doesn't have. It's a much better situation for Alvin Kamara. And MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew, was also speaking on this, saying that the 30-year-old star brings great value as a dual threat running back whose defenses can account or must account for on every play. Elaborating further that the Saints are in full rebuild mode and they could very well be in the quarterback market once again next offseason and need as many assets as they can get. Kamara's trade value might not be nearly as high as it once was, but by moving the experienced playmaker, New Orleans could free up some draft capital and free up some cap space. So that cap space will be expensive, about $25 million for New Orleans to free up and Minnesota to take on. So with that, I don't necessarily see Minnesota making this move unless Aaron Jones and some draft picks are a part of that. And maybe deal a third string quarterback or something like that. Not Max Brosmer, leave him free. Maybe deal Desmond Ridder to them. Maybe he has a career resurgence in New Orleans while they're trying to find another heir to their quarterback legacy and maybe hoping that Arch Manning has a bit of a turn of the tide. But I really like what MJD is saying here, how he is 30 years old, but still is a great dual threat running back. He brings so much capability out of the pass catching game where even on a team as bad as New Orleans, he's still been able to produce. He's been the only fantasy relevant player on that team, it seems like, for the past 3 years. Chris Olave has had flashes, but he can't stay healthy and things like that. But with Alvin Kamara, he's been consistent almost his entire career. And yeah, he has some injuries here and there, but nothing incredibly too major that would sideline him for too long. The only problem I'm seeing with Minnesota is, like I said, with the cost. Minnesota doesn't have too much cap space left. They might have to move some players around and potentially lose Aaron Jones as a result, which would kind of suck because A, he's a captain on this team for one, and B, he was just extended this past offseason to stay for 2 more seasons, and he wants to retire a Minnesota Viking. Fortunately, we know that the NFL doesn't always work out like that, and we could see Aaron Jones potentially moved on from just for a 2-year younger running back who brings a little bit more flashiness and a little bit more production and a little bit less injury scares. However, we could see Minnesota be able to keep Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, and still get Alvin Kamara without having to lose too much. But let us know what you guys think of this all down in the comments below. What did you think of Maurice Jones-Drew's comments on the matter as well? And do you want Alvin Kamara to be a Minnesota Viking? Would you be willing to give up Aaron Jones if that were the case? Let us know what you guys have to say about it down in the comments below. And do you think that this is something that would help Minnesota or be a detriment to them, especially with some of the things with Kamara and some of his off-field issues there has been in the past? That could be something that Minnesota just doesn't want to go near with a 10-foot pole just because they have built such a massive culture around just having very healthy, a lot of healthiness in that culture, no toxicity, no drama really, and really kind of handling business as they see fit and doing it in a very respectful manner. They don't want to have any drama or off-field issues, so maybe a player that has a history with that, they don't want to kind of go through that where they have a little bit of noise around them when they already have enough noise around them with the JJ McCarthy stuff in that sense. So that could be something where Minnesota might be a little bit hesitant, but overall, if you get Alvin Kamara, that is a huge boost. And I would definitely be happy if we got Alvin Kamara. Yeah, he's a bit past his prime, but you put him on a team like Minnesota where he has an offensive line, has a quarterback, has a wide receiver core that can bring great support. I think we see an entirely different Alvin Kamara and a very dangerous one. If you have a backfield of Alvin Kamara and Jordan Mason, watch out because that would be a very lethal tandem to deal with. But let us know about it down in the comments below and stay tuned for the next episode that we got of Vikings Digest. We got our big game in Dublin, Ireland coming up on Sunday, so stay tuned for that postgame that will be coming on Sunday afternoon. But until then, we're going to have all sorts of news and a bunch of lead up heading into the game. So stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss it. But for now, I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.